you going out to dinner and feeling like amazing. You go to the beach, you feel fantastic. You have no problem in social settings, being confident in self at work, everything. Now imagine getting there and you know how to maintain that and live your life like that. Imagine that feeling.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Truth Talks, the podcast that brings you real strategies for sustainable fitness transformation. Paris is laughing at me.
I'm sorry. This is everybody. This is why you cannot do podcasts with your older sister, because for some reason, every single time we do the intro, I can't help but start laughing. It's like when you guys get in trouble at the dinner table when you're younger, and then it's like super serious, but then you both look at each other and it's just hilarious. That's what it is. Every single time she does the intro. I'm sorry. Sometimes you don't know this, but we have to edit it out because I start laughing. Anyways.
Yeah, we re-record the intro sometimes 3 times.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
But it's so worth it.
Still a kid.
It's so worth it. Yeah, we bring out each other's inner kid sometimes, which is, I think, actually one of the perks of working with your sibling, you know?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? We are matching kind of today. We both are in white t-shirts, for whatever that's worth. True. Same page. Keeping things fun and light over here for the summer spirit. Okay, so today I want to ask you, Paris, what phase are you in right now in your fitness journey? Like, what current goals are you working towards?
I'm like 90% through my building phase, which has lasted with a very brief mini cut that was supposed to be longer that didn't end up being longer. But I've been building for almost a year now. So I'm like 90-95% through my long building phase.
That's awesome. I personally am also kind of in a building phase, which, building phases tend to be the longer ones, right? But I feel like in the past year, since you've been working on your building phase, I've had kind of like a few, like, I'd say the macro phase or the bigger picture has been working on like muscle building goals. Within that, though, I have had some time like in a deficit, but also a little bit of time at maintenance. So not necessarily actively working towards fat loss, but also not working towards like an extreme calorie surplus or any sort of calorie surplus, really. Just trying to like keep my calorie intake consistent and maintain at a certain level. So over the past year, like I've had some of that kind of sprinkled in to my building phase, whereas you've been pretty much straight like building.
Pretty much, yeah. Like just slowly floating my way up.
So for those of you who are new to maintenance phases, that's going to be today's topic. As you just heard, we have kind of had different trajectories over the course of the past year. Both Paris and I have been working on trying to build muscle, but we've kind of had, differences in what the past year has meant for us in terms of phases. And so we want to kind of talk today about the third phase that is not just building, not just cutting, but maintenance, and what the value of that actually can be. So we're going to talk first and foremost about like, what is a maintenance phase? Then we're going to talk a little bit about like why you can use them and why they're often overlooked. And then we're going to dive into when it makes the most sense to deploy a maintenance phase and some of the value you can truly extract out of it. How does that sound, Paris?
That sounds great. I think people in the fitness industry are allergic to the word maintenance because they're like, we have to be progressing constantly, right? But it's like, we're going to show you why you will actually potentially make even more progress if you know how to strategically utilize maintenance phases. And I know we use them a lot with clients. I use them a lot with myself. So we're going to talk about it. But first, what is it exactly? Maybe we got to give the definition first.
Good call. Because before we can talk about what we're going to talk about, we have to tell you what we're going to talk about. Yeah. So how would you define a maintenance phase? Or how would you define maintenance in the context of a fitness journey, whether it's a phase or just the definition of maintain?
Typically, when we talk about a maintenance phase, it just means that we're eating to maintain our body weight. That's like the most simple definition. So we're not pushing body weight up or down. So we're not clearly, okay, we're hopping into a deficit for targeting fat loss, and we're not, okay, we're pushing food up and going to surplus for trying to build muscle and up our body weight. It could also be this would be also where you would have maintenance calories as well, but it could be phase where you're eating maintenance calories and you're also training with like a maintenance dose, we'll say, where your training volume is maybe a little bit lower just to kind of maintain your current level of muscle mass and strength, maybe. But I think for this podcast,
instead of like pushing performance goals, you mean in the gym?
Right. And we'll talk about the nuances of that later. And not pushing like volumes that would, potentially promote still muscle adaptation, even eating at maintenance. So that's like another kind of aspect of a maintenance phase. But for this podcast, I think we'll just classify it as you're eating at maintenance calories. So the amount of calories that your body maintains its body weight on. Yeah.
Which we also often talk about like as energy balance. People might hear calories in, calories out, and we use that to think about deficits and surpluses, but it's when that scale or that balance is just kind of a state of equilibrium almost. So we call that energy balance. I think the really important thing to remember though is maintenance isn't doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a misconception around like maintenance is just, oh, I'm not actively doing anything. No, you're still going to the gym, being active throughout your life. You're still eating. It's not like you're not eating. You're also not binging because you're trying to maintain a certain calorie level. So it's not doing nothing. It's kind of like, if I had to define it in one phrase, I would be like the active pursuit of balance, or the active pursuit of continuity, rather. It's like this idea of not necessarily expecting to see major changes in your body composition, but being able to maintain where you're at in a way that supports your ability to move through day-to-day life.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think this is why people tend to think like it is a standstill, but it's really not. And that's the main thing I want to highlight from this is like why these can potentially really add such an awesome section, I guess, to your fitness journey as a whole. And like having maintenance chapters can be really, really useful. So yeah, I'll follow with that definition. Yeah.
Maintenance phases, as we've just defined them, have a purpose, and we're going to explore the details of that purpose. But before we can dive into it, when we think about the definition of maintenance being, energy balance and continuity and holding on to progress, but not necessarily pushing progress, why are maintenance phases so overlooked then? Like, why do we get so fixated on we have to cut, we have to bulk, we have to make these drastic, constant state of drastic changes? Why do we overlook maintenance before we can dive into the benefits of it?
I think it's because people that are very into fitness tend to be very goal oriented people, which a lot of times is what makes them successful in their fitness goals. So they rather choose a very concrete goal where they feel like every day they're like making progress to that. And when you put the word maintenance in there, it's like, oh yuck, maintenance. I want to set a goal that I can reach for. Like let's get after, right? So I think that's why. And then also, let's say you go on Instagram, you see like a reel of like 12-month bulking transformation or like 12-week fat loss. You don't see like 6-week maintenance, right?
Right? Yeah. I look the same.
This is my 6-week maintenance like transformation.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
exactly the same. So it's not very inspirational to be like, well, I'm maintained for 6 weeks, like So, anyways.
Here's the thing that I think we need to recognize. I'm just gonna. This is my like kind of. I want this to be my mic drop moment of this podcast. You tell me if I succeeded or not. How many times have people made changes to their body composition and not been able to hold on to them and not been able to maintain? So we see those transformations. We don't see what happens after a lot of times. That stuff doesn't go on social media. And so our perspective of maintenance is heavily skewed by, the information we're consuming, the narratives out there around the fitness industry. And this is a little bit less of the being a goal-oriented kind of person and more of the we feel this pressure side of things. But one of the biggest challenges that the fitness industry faces when it comes to physique and body composition is weight maintenance. Mm-hmm. We don't, as a society, have a weight loss problem. We talk about weight loss. People drop weight all the time. We have a weight maintenance problem, Absolutely. Which is that people don't know how to maintain effectively. So we are always overlooking maintenance phases because we think, well, I need to make changes to my body. I need to have this goal that keeps me feeling like this progress is tangible. But people are ignoring the fact that like you haven't really reached your goal if you can't keep it.
Yeah. And I'm going to add my mic drop on top of this. So we'll drop 2 mics on the ground because I love that. And I think that we really need to hammer that point home that you just said. And to add on top of that is your diet wasn't truly quote unquote successful if you rebound by 20 pounds in a month. So people will say like, oh, well, last time I did this with my diet. It's like, well, we're sitting back in the same spot that you started that one in. So like, how can we say that was truly successful? You're like, oh, well, it worked last time. worked? Did
Did
it?
it?
Because you gained all the weight back in a short time frame. Like, did it really work? Like, to classify as work, yes, it needs to get you to the goal, but then if you can't maintain it, or if maintaining feels like so hard to do, and you always put on the weight back, then unless you're getting to really lean, you're supposed to gain some body weight after. But in like a normal fat loss phase, if you're putting all the weight back on right away, it did not quote unquote work. I'm sorry, and that's a hard
Yep.
truth.
Yeah, no, it is a hard truth. And I would say like the same rules apply outside of fat loss when we think about somebody who is like, I'm going to gain muscle. I'm going to go to the gym 6 days a week. I'm going to train super hard. I'm going to spend 2 hours a day, and I'm going to really go all in on this phase to try to hit my muscle building goals. What happens when you burn out? What happens when life changes in terms of like your schedule or work demands or life demands or family demands, right? Like you need to know what I don't even want to call it a fallback, because it's not a fallback, because that makes it sound like it's
Call it like
second tier.
baseline operation.
Baseline. Yes, baseline. You need to know what your baseline foundations for success are. And that's where we can rely on maintenance. That's where we can rely on, hey, I know exactly when I've hit my fat loss goals, what I can do to stay successful, to hold on to that progress.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You got to think of it like this. Losing fat productively is a skill in itself. Building muscle productively is also a skill in itself, but so is maintenance. So you got to think about, we have so many different tools and skills in our tool belt with our fitness journey, and like maintenance is a button that you need to be able to know how to press.
Yes. Yes. When you also accept that you need to know how to maintain, it can also then change how you approach a fat loss or muscle growth goal. For example, I have a client I'm working with who said to me, I've been able to lose the weight before, but it comes back on. I need this time to be different. I want to maintain my progress. So she's going into her current phase knowing what I do now has to be something I can sustain or something that I can see myself maintaining.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really powerful thought too, to know that like there is an intended maintenance on the other side of your body composition goals too. And then it encourages you to change your approach. Change your approach away from something that is, okay, it's going to help me drop the weight, but who knows what's going to happen after, to something that is like, how do I build those strong foundations? How do I build up my baseline? And I think the language I've been using with a lot of clients recently who are kind of more in like, who experience and explore maintenance phases is like sustainable habits phases. It's like, if you can't do some of these things on a regular basis, or if you can't go through life moments with these skills, then we're not going to be able to push that fat loss button as hard as we need to, or come out of the other side of a fat loss phase with as much confidence as we need to continue and hold on to our results.
Yeah. And this is another reason why, like, don't fire your coach after the fat loss phase finishes, because we've had like previous clients, and again, I would never name any names, and everybody's human, but who do very well in the fat loss phase. And then they're like, okay, peace. We did such a great job. I don't need you more. And then they're like, and then you see that, message come in like either like maybe a year later and be like, hey, like, can we do this again? Like, and then you see, and we're in like the same position that we started. And we're like, oh, we just did 6 months of fat loss. It's like, you need to learn the skill of maintenance. But anyways, let's move on. But like, it just, I see it again. I'm so passionate about this because it's so disheartening when you erase so much progress that you work so hard for.
100%. So we just told you guys why we think maintenance phases are overlooked, and also why they shouldn't be. We kind of rolled those two things together. Hopefully that kind of alluded to the fact that there are benefits doing maintenance phases. But we want to actually explore specifically the exact benefits of taking a maintenance phase. And it will look different, across different contexts in your individual fitness journey. But there are some very, very clear benefits of maintenance phases. Do you want to start with the first one?
Yeah. So I think most of this can be geared in the context of like, fat loss and fat loss maintenance and all these things. So the first one I would say is,
or body composition maintenance, I guess, right?
Yeah.
In general.
So I think one of the main ways that I use maintenance phases with myself and clients would be after you've lost a significant chunk of body weight, then you do a maintenance phase for a few reasons. Number one, a lot of the diet symptoms that start to creep in, like maybe hunger or lower energy or training performance starts to take a hit, those kind of things. Or if you're getting really lean, like even the sleep thing, it kind of relieves some of those symptoms when you bring your body up to a state of better homeostasis, we'll call it. And
Can I just
We're
define
better support.
homeostasis for people who don't know? So if you're listening and you don't know the word homeostasis, that is essentially your body's like equilibrium zone, right? It's where
Yes, equilibrium,
everything,
exactly.
yeah. So it's like where everything feels like it's exactly at that Goldilocks zone for your body, let's call it, right? That is also related to energy balance of like your calorie intake matching your body's daily calorie needs.
Yeah. A lot of those diet type symptoms from fat loss dieting can almost be like, brought back up to normal in a sense by having a maintenance phase, especially if you have a large amount of body weight that you need to lose. Having that strategic maintenance phase and like halfway through, or maybe like 70% through, or something like that, I use it time and time and time again. It works like a charm. And you'll notice also it kind of like is a little pit stop. Like you wouldn't drive. There's a reason why Formula One cars stop for a pit stop, change the tires, refill, and then they're like faster in total for the race. Maybe for that lap, they lost a little bit of time, right? But for the whole race, they actually go faster. It's the same thing with a fat loss phase. You're like, oh, I don't want to take a break from a deficit. Like, it's going to ruin it. It's actually setting you up as like a springboard for the next chunk of fat loss. So that's like one of the main ways that I like to use maintenance phases with clients. Not to add, there's a psychological component of having a little bit more to eat for a little while, maybe potentially a slight reduction in your expenditure as well, depending on the context. So yeah.
I love the Formula One analogy. That's exactly what it is. Fresh tires is the thing that allows you to go faster every time.
Mm-hmm.
Every time.
Mm-hmm.
So for all you Formula One fans, there you go. That's just explains it perfectly. So I think you touched on a few things in there, right? But the biggest one actually being your ability to keep pushing progress for longer and more effectively later.
Yes.
I do want to talk a little bit more about the psychological benefits that you spoke to, and how this idea of like eating more food, right? And what that can do for you psychologically. And there's spillover effects of that too, in terms of like your social life, your family life, perhaps, or life at home, right? Your work life, those sorts of things. And just being able to kind of maybe navigate more food based circumstances with a little bit more comfort. And also even just food selection, right? Because like if you are in a dieting phase or a fat loss phase, you might be more specific with the foods you choose to eat on a daily
Yes.
basis to manage things like hunger and everything. So when you have a maintenance phase and you're like, oh, I have 500 more calories than normal to play with, then you can then maybe you're like, you know what? Today, instead of some strawberries, I'm going to have a bowl of Cheerios because I have a little bit more room. And there's a psychological benefit to like the enjoyment of the whole journey. And like you said, it doesn't compromise on your goals because you're going to change those tires and go back even faster. But it instills this little bit of like enjoyment, I think, into the journey as well.
100%. And let's get real. A calorie restriction is not easy for anybody.
Mm-mm.
Yes, the game is
It's
not
not
fair. Some
supposed to
people,
be.
no, it's not supposed to be for everything anyway, and it's not supposed to be easy, right? But like some people, yes, find it a lot easier than others. Like some people have more hunger, some people have less hunger. Some people have affects energy, some people don't. Like everybody is affected by weight loss and also or fat loss, sorry. And then also depending on where you're starting, how much body weight you're losing, what percentage, also how lean you are getting, previous diet history, where your body likes to be in terms of selling point. Like there's so many of these factors to assess, but I think regardless, maintenance phases can be really, really strategic.
So the extent to which you experience some of these benefits of maintenance phase might be different depending on kind of what your dieting experience might be as well, right? But I think
100%.
it's inarguable that those benefits are also distinctly human, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
enjoyment, psychological reprieve, refueling the tank for other physical changes, physique changes, all of that is going to be true no matter what your current experience is or what your goals are.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the other core benefit of actually going through a maintenance phase that we can't forget about is kind of testing yourself and testing the skills that you have. Because
Mm-hmm.
if you do want that autonomy to move through life in a way that like keeps your progress and holds on to the progress you have made and doesn't bounce back and doesn't yo-yo diet and all of that, then you need to have a period of time where you're actually testing your skills that you've been working on and
Yes.
testing your habits and being like, can I actually maintain this? And then if you're struggling to do that in a maintenance phase, then it's a good indicator, you know what, okay, some of the approach that might be taking might not necessarily be as sustainable as I thought. How do I revisit them? How do I re-strategize? And kind of like figuring out how do you quote unquote life proof your fitness journey.
Yeah, I like it. And it's developing that skill ahead of time. So if you're like halfway through your fat loss phase, you're like, hey, we're running a maintenance phase. This is what it's going to be like after the diet. Gives you a taste of what your lifestyle choices, level of flexibility, and how you operate needs to be like post fat loss. You're doing a practice maintenance phase. So it's like, oh, gotcha. And you're developing that skill, as you said. So that then when you finish maybe the second half or whatever the fat loss phase, you're like, hey, remember that maintenance phase and what you're doing then? Let's rinse that. Because sorry guys, but maintenance and deficit can be like literally difference of like a bowl of cereal, right? Let's get real here. It's maybe a 350 calorie difference depending on, the severity of your fat loss phase. So it's not like, your life is so much different, but you still need to learn how it is.
You do. And I think you need to also, part of that learning is recognizing where it's realistically different and how much it isn't.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. The final benefit of a maintenance phase I do want to touch on before we talk about when to use them is training performance. Mm-hmm. And I think you'd probably be better suited to explore this one, but I do think training performance and kind of reconnecting with a bit of a love for training and feeling energized in the gym again is a benefit of a maintenance phase. Because even when you have like a small difference in calories, like you get those back, it goes a long way.
Yeah, there's a pretty significant difference in training performance at maintenance versus in a deficit. Like you will notice a difference, even like your body's just like, hey, we're in a deficit now. So I think if you're in one of those longer diets and you lost a lot of body weight, you'll realize training might feel a little bit stale or training motivation kind of dips, or you're like, man, those extra couple reps I used to get, I can't get anymore. Totally normal. Doesn't necessarily mean you're 100% losing muscle. Also, your leverages change as you lose body weight. That's another point. However, by just bringing food up a little bit, can kind of refill your gas tank. You're like, oh, right, this is how training feels like, and it's so much more enjoyable. All of a sudden, you're like, yes, I do love training. I just kind of forgot for a couple weeks there.
Yeah, exactly. It also then keeps you committed to the process to find that enjoyment again when it starts to taper off. Okay, so final thing I do want to touch on as a benefit, and it's going to actually naturally lead us into when, is your fitness journey and chasing goals can be very energy demanding, and not just energy in terms of calories or energy, in terms of like your mental energy, your commitment, your time, how much it takes out of you every day. So when you're constantly trying to push for progress, a maintenance phase gives you a little bit of reprieve to allocate some of your energy and time towards other life requirements too. Mm-hmm. And that, so sometimes you can like align maintenance phases with these life moments where you might need a little bit more reprieve. This is a benefit, but it's going to be our segue into when to use them. And I'm going to give a personal example for me, if that's okay, just to kick things off. Okay. So I, last fall, was doing a cutting phase. I had spent a year building and was like, okay, I hit kind of body composition I wasn't comfortable with, worked with my coach. We started cutting, did that for about 6 to 8 weeks. And then I, at that point in time, made the decision to leave my job. The demands, the emotional and mental demands for me to like wrap up a job I had been in for years, a career I'd spent almost a decade working on, make the transition to fully commit to doing, this with you and Truth Body Systems in full.
It's like a shock.
It was a lot. Yeah. It was a lot. And so my coach and I decided like we need a maintenance phase because we could not continue to push that level of fat loss in a high stress environment. And to be honest, the only reason I was doing it was for me. I didn't have a competition photo shoot. It was for me anyways. So if I was the one standing to benefit, why am I going to sacrifice this big life moment and my ability to manage it for something that was for me anyways, right?
Exactly. That's a great example. So periods of high stress or big life transitions like moving could, for example, be a great time to practice maintenance phases. And this would also go back to the conversation I was having around also potentially training with maintenance volumes too, right?
Yes. Yes.
Because remember, you can maintain your muscle if you're eating at maintenance or surplus. You can maintain your muscle with somewhere around, let's just call it a third of your typical training volume that you would need to grow muscle. So right. Don't quote me on that exact number, but somewhere around there, right? So you can maintain with significantly less. So instead of, next time life gets stressful, instead of dropping everything with your nutrition and your training, how about we say, hey, I'm going to reduce my training volume to this instead, which is much more manageable. And I'm also going to give myself a bit of a standstill with my energy needs just to focus on maintaining calories, just makes it a lot easier.
Yes, I love that you brought that up because it also shows the value of maintenance in terms of like the muscle building side of things, not just the fat loss side of things, right? You did a great reel on this recently on your Instagram, right? Like maintaining muscle takes a lot less effort than building muscle. Mm-hmm. So when you tone down the energy requirements, whether that's number of training days, total training volume, all of that, you can maintain. But then think about how much more energy you can reallocate into those big life moments.
Absolutely. Because and also we've been talking a lot about fat loss and stuff like that, right? But people don't realize when you're not new to training anymore and you're more advanced and you're trying to put on muscle tissue, your volumes might get pretty high and the recovery cost is pretty high because you're not going to gain muscle off, maybe the 3 sets of newbie squats that you used to. So there is a certain lifestyle cost to adding those additional icing on the cake type amounts of muscle later in your training career. So sometimes you might need a maintenance phase in your building phase for that
Yes.
reason as well. So, anyways,
Yes, exactly. To kind of like shift into like give yourself recovery, kind of come back to homeostasis versus this like, I'm going to say like intense level of like stress, because training is a stress on the
it is.
body.
And if you're training at really high volumes very intensely, that's psychologically demanding. And sometimes if you're going through a lot in life, like maybe going through a breakup or moving or a job change, like everything gets under the same umbrella of stress for your body. Doesn't you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like you just might not be able to be productive in your ability phase. So anyways, or I know we're kind of bleeding
Amazing.
into the next topic. I'm sorry.
No, it's great. No, I think that's great. We were going to segue anyways. Can
Yeah.
we talk
Okay.
about like, let's talk about when to use maintenance phases. And you just started to talk a little bit about, I think, okay, overall, when to use maintenance phases, when you are going through major life moments in terms of when life has demands outside of your fitness journey, going to maintenance phase can keep you feeling accountable, maintain your continuity, still find some level of consistency without the pressure of having to push pace or see more immediate progress.
Mm-hmm,
Does
mm-hmm.
that sound fair?
Yes.
So like the
Yeah.
first time or the first scenario to consider maintenance phases is really as life kind of dictates in a way.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The second one would be in between phases. So as we said, like you've just finished a fat loss phase. Don't go right into building right away. Settle. A lot of times,
Mm-hmm.
if you did lose any muscle tissue, hopefully you didn't, it will come back when you're eating at maintenance. So now you've got your new
Mm.
level of leanness and some new tissue. Amazing. Or some regaining of the lost tissue, muscle tissue that you had. But it also shows you how to then maintain that leanness and it lets you settle, kind of recoup, recover from the diet, and then start in your building phase. You'll be a lot more successful.
Yeah. Do you see also like when people do take that maintenance phase before going into building, that their building phase is more productive in terms of maybe less body fat gained and more intentional muscle growth progress?
I think it's person dependent. However, I will say a lot of times you actually look a lot better after a couple weeks of eating at maintenance post diet because your glycogen is restored. Sometimes lost tissue comes in. Like for example, the last 2 weeks of my competition prep last year, we weren't dieting. We brought up food because my body just stopped responding well. It just was I was looking almost worse each week because we had been dieting
Mm.
for a while. So we brought food up and we reduced steps a little bit, and my look actually sharpened up. So it's not always just about pushing for more leanness. Always.
Yeah, and that can give people a lot of like validation too of like, oh, okay, this works. Like this is actually a space I want to be in, and also like I can eat at maintenance and still see my physique be in a space where it feels good to me.
Exactly.
Right?
And what a
Yeah.
great feeling because then now you're well fed, more flexibility with life, looking even better than you did when you finished the fat loss phase. And now you can choose. You have control over if you do want to build or if you want to rock the new, the new outfit you got for a bit.
Yeah. So keep maintaining could be great, right? To just like explore that confidence, that level of confidence, and feel like is that level
Yeah,
of leanness sustainable for you?
enjoy
You don't
it.
have
You work
to
hard for it.
go ahead and gain and be like, oh well, gotta get fluffy again. Like that's
Yeah,
you don't have
yeah,
to. There's no one telling you
exactly.
you have to do that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
So
then
that was the second time when to use them, which was
yes,
in between fat loss and muscle gaining phases.
correct.
Third time.
Third, and just to add on that, you can do it at the end of a muscle building phase. You just let your body settle before you then make your descent. That's enough.
Right.
But
Oh,
so still the same point. Oh yeah.
can I actually add on like a small detail too? I think there is some benefit to doing maintenance phases sometimes within a gaining phase. If you are eating in a calorie surplus for a long time, sometimes your appetite can get blunted. Like you don't get hungry, you don't enjoy food as much anymore. Maybe you don't feel as confident, and it doesn't mean you have to do a mini cut, which is another strategy we can use to kind of
Yeah,
restore some of those things. You don't
for
necessarily
sure.
have to do a mini cut. You can. It's a great tool. But sometimes you can just choose maintenance for a little bit and ride that
Yeah.
out and then keep working on your building goals.
Yes, if you're one of the people that, oh, I'm so stuffed, I can't, if you have to, some people have to be at really high calories to build muscle, right? So I know,
Yeah,
I wish, but
I know. Same.
So yeah,
But
good
it's just
point.
something to consider, right? Is like it can be between a fat loss and a muscle building phase, but it can also be within a muscle building phase.
Yes, which leads me to like the third scenario, which I touched on earlier, which is in between a fat loss phase.
You
So
got it.
the majority of people, I'm sorry guys and girls, and no matter what you identify as, if you're doing a fat loss phase, you have a lot of times more body fat to lose than you think you do. Everybody's like, oh, I just need to lose that last 10 pounds, whatever. A lot of time, I'm sorry, the look you want is like 30, 35 pounds away. And I'm sorry to be the one to say that, but it is the way it is. So guess what's a lot easier? Take off 15, press pause for a little bit, get all those benefits we mentioned, then take off another 15, 20, whatever, or vice versa. Allowing yourself to have that maintenance phase has all those benefits that we just mentioned. And it just makes the process so much better. Your body tends to respond better. Fat loss on the other side is smoother. And a lot of times, even if you want to use it as like a plateau, I would say like if you're at a plateau, sometimes take the maintenance phase and then just go back to the same protocol and things start going for some reason. Yeah.
We actually talked a little bit about that in our How Do You Know If You're in a Plateau episode.
Yes.
You brought that up. You brought up the value of like taking that break from dieting to help break through a plateau as well. So I'm gonna drop that link up here and then in the description
I forget
as well.
what I say, but
yeah. Just because you know it all so well. So yes, so I want to ask you though as a follow-up, if you are deploying maintenance phases within a fat loss phase, a longer fat loss phase, how do you know like at what point in time would you consider using maintenance? Like, does it depend on how much you've lost, the timeline? Like, when would you go like, okay, we might be ready for maintenance phase?
Yeah, so definitely context dependent. What I will say is most of the time, like as a rough rule of thumb, if you've lost somewhere over 10% of your body weight, so for reference, if I'm 180 pounds and I lose 18 pounds, that's 10% of my body weight, probably ready for a maintenance phase as a general rule of thumb. Or if we said, hey, we're at a plateau, if you have time in your fat loss phase to do that, or if those diet symptoms are creeping up a little bit too much. Like the hunger, lack of energy, training sucks. Like, okay, let's take a maintenance phase.
Yep, that makes total sense. I love that you led with context dependent because I've also worked with clients who maybe have, I'm thinking of one client in particular who actually lost more than 10%, but was feeling no symptoms of fatigue, was continuing to progress in her workouts, was, feeling great every day. So we just kept going. We didn't take a maintenance phase. So it's not obligatory. But when you start to look at, okay, I've lost about 10% and I'm also experiencing some of these factors, I'm ready for those benefits that we just spoke about, then maintenance phase could be the right strategy for you.
100%. And the 10% rule is less applicable when you're starting at a very high body fat percentage.
Right. Yes.
So, like something going from average to very lean makes a lot of sense. But if you're starting like in medically considered obese body fat percentages, then you most likely lose more than 10%. You'll be totally fine. Your body's ready to keep going. Yeah.
Hence why you said this is all context dependent, but it's nice to have some considerations to evaluate.
I want to say one more thing. I know we're going, sorry, I know we're doing lots of stuff.
It's okay. It's a good juicy episode. I like it.
People in competition prep, biggest cheat code ever, do a pre-prep diet, okay? You take off the first chunk and then you hold steady for a while and you start prep from a really great spot. And prep will be so much easier. You'll look better. You have less diet symptoms. And because everybody needs to get leaner than they think they do. And nowadays people are getting so freaking lean at these shows that if you're going to start at your heaviest and go all the way down in a straight shot, no bueno. Okay. I'm just telling you that right now. So imagine starting.
Especially,
sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm just getting excited.
I'm really passionate about this. Like imagine doing a competition prep where you have to lose 40 pounds versus doing a competition prep where you have to lose 15. Think about the difference in how easy that's going to be, right? So anyways, that's like a cheat code that I wish more people did.
That's what you and the guys did last year. I'm just going to plug us again because last year you guys had these like roundtable discussions along the way. We called it the Adonis Project, right? Your journey to the stage. So we have that playlist. I'll link it as well. You guys can see the way that they talk about, like the way you guys talk about the pre-prep diet, the maintenance phase in between. Because when you said hold steady, what you were talking about was a maintenance phase.
Yes.
And then kind of going back into the diet again. And I think what it does is like,
even though it got 15 views, no.
Hey, anyone who watched it, we thank you. But now we can reference it and maybe someone new will watch it. But I think it's just like the idea of like, because it is an extreme goal to jump on stage, like you were just talking about, it takes a lot more than you think it does often. But it's always going to be challenging to do something that extreme, but it doesn't have to be the most challenging possible. There are ways to mitigate that. It doesn't have to be sheer suffering. And so if you are somebody who has like felt the suffering to get to stage, maybe consider having an extended timeline that allows you to do a pre-prep diet, accounts for maintenance phase, and then the prep portion, the like lead up to stage, is going to feel so much easier.
Yes, it's not a suffering contest, it's a bodybuilding contest, and people need to
Yes.
remember that sometimes. Anyways, that's a different
Yep.
topic for another.
That's a different topic
Okay.
for another podcast episode. Okay, we want to wrap things up by just talking about evaluating what a successful maintenance phase looks like. And a lot of this is the mindset piece for today. Just when you're looking at a maintenance phase, your goal isn't some sort of dramatic or even not dramatic, just any sort of like necessarily like physique change and outcomes. So you need to kind of detach yourself from, hey, I'm doing a maintenance phase to see my body change in this way, because that's not the goal. You need to put it in your head from the get-go, having a clear goal for a maintenance phase and making it something like, I want to see my energy levels go up. I want my hunger cues to, be more regular again. I want to be able to enjoy these social moments, or I want to be able to manage stress during this life event. Different improved biofeedback, like how the symptoms your body is giving you or not giving you anymore. All of those sorts of things are really important indicators of success, and you need to put it in your head that that's what you're looking for.
100%. And I'll leave with a visual. If everyone could visualize this, right? There's a certain body composition that you really like, right? And let's say it's a realistic body fat percentage that's healthy, but the look is really great. And that's like you going out to dinner and feeling like amazing. You go to the beach, you feel fantastic. You have no problem in social settings, being confident in self, at work, everything. Now imagine getting there and you know how to maintain that and live your life like that. Imagine that feeling. You could spend as long as you want just maintaining this amazing physique that you're super happy with. Isn't that ultimately the goal at the end of the
It
day for a
is.
lot of people?
It
So,
is.
so I'll say it like it is. Mastering the maintenance phase is actually even more important than the fat loss phase. Let's not forget
I
that.
agree. And it's harder. It is harder for a lot of people. Fat loss is hard too, but like some people can do it and can't maintain. So I'm going to summarize what you're just saying. I think it's like living the lifestyle is what comes to mind for me, right? That goal of like, I'm not necessarily doing this thing with a particular outcome or this phase that ends. I'm living the lifestyle. And if you genuinely can feel like I'm living the lifestyle and also have that vision in your head that Parrish has illustrated so beautifully, you've got it.
Yeah. Big wins. Awesome. Love it.
I think we just wrapped up maintenance phases for today, at least. We'd love to hear if you've ever used a maintenance phase before, or if you're feeling like maybe it's something you want help mastering or figuring out. Drop a comment below. Let us know how you feel about maintenance phases, how they've worked for you, and if you'd like to try one out, because we will happily support you in your maintenance strategies. All right, everybody, that is it for this week. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Truth Talks. We look forward to being back in your feeds again next Monday with a brand new episode. Bye for now.
See you then.